Oh, there we go. Um, we we have come back, and I want to welcome you to part three. Um, Ingestion. What is ingestion? Now, under ingestion, the food enters in the mouth through eating, right? Now, we also have under that ingestion, we have mastication. When we talk about ingestion, to ingest is to take in food, take in something. Now, under that, we have mastication. When food has entered, what happens? Very well. Mastication occurs. What is mastication? Now, the teeth in the mouth, we have the teeth, and in the other video, we talked about the types of teeth. So I wouldn't love to go so much into that. So here we are just talking about mastication. The teeth chew the food. Are you getting that? Into smaller pieces. So the teeth as you eat. Now that is the act of eating. You chew the food, right? After chewing, in the meanwhile, you are masticating. You're breaking it down into smaller pieces, increasing the surface area. So, which means as you chew, you break down into smaller pieces, and this um, reduces, increases the surface area for enzyme action. Now, we have salivation. It is also a process as it is involved in ingesting. We have salivation. Under the tongue, under your tongue, we have what we call salivary glands. Now, these glands produce saliva. And what is that saliva? That saliva contains some substances. And what are these substances? Note down this very well. You have to know that saliva is also important. Now, saliva contains amylase. We are talking about salivary amylase. And what does the salivary amylase do? The salivary amylase breaks down the glucose, the carbohydrates. Are you getting me very well? What you eat is called starch, whether cooked or not cooked, it is starch. So when you eat, the salivary amylase produced, or that is in the saliva that is produced by the salivary glands below the tongue is what we call is what acts on the starch. It breaks down the starches into simpler substances, and these are sugars. So they are called maltose and dextrins. So we now know that salivary amylase, breaks down the, the starch into dextrins and maltose. The next thing after that is the lipase. Your saliva also has lipase, and this lipase breaks down fats into fatty acids and glycerol. Fatty acids and glycerol as you eat the food. Now, the next process is the process of swallowing. As you eat, remember, as you are chewing, whatever I have talked about is happening, but also we have a tongue. Swallowing is a process that is, it is a, it is sort of a passive process. In fact, you don't, during swallowing, there are some things that happen that we are going to explore in our next discussion. But for now, let's simply talk about um, swallowing. The process of swallowing, as you chew, the tongue rolls the food into a bolus. Into a bolus. making it easy for swallowing. In the meanwhile, it is that very tongue that is mixing your food with what we call saliva, like we talked about earlier on. And so the food is swallowed and it passes through the pharynx. The food passes through the pharynx into the esophagus, right? It passes into the pharynx. How? The tongue presses the food on top of your roof, the roof of your buccal cavity. Your mouth has a roof called a hard palate. So as it presses, the food moves downwards into the pharynx. So it goes up to the esophagus, right? So what happens in the esophagus? This is now the red swallowing we are talking about. There is a process called peristalsis. Peristalsis. It is a muscular contraction. So when we talk about peristalsis, simply these are muscular contractions that propel food down as the muscles contract and relax. The muscles of your gullet, also known as the esophagus. So they contract and relax. And what does that do? That process is a wave-like process called peristalsis. And the contractions we are saying they propel food down, and this food moves down the esophagus into the stomach. Now, the in the esophagus, we also have a part called the les. Les in food, LES in food is the lower esophageal sphincter. The lower esophageal sphincter is what we are talking about. And sorry, so we're saying that the lower esophageal sphincter is a ring-like muscle that separates the esophagus and the stomach, regulating food passage. Okay, it regulates the food passage reached in the stomach, right? And in the stomach has a number of layers, and these layers, um, sorry, they protect the stomach. The innermost layer is made of mucus. This mucus protects the stomach against what we are going to learn about as HCl. Don't forget in our next discussion. Well, this very one if time allows. Um, in the stomach, the gastric juice production is the first thing there, which means the stomach lining produces gastric juice. Now, in that gastric juice, it also has substances. What are those substances in the gastric juice? Number one is the hydrochloric acid. What I told you earlier on that it is called the HCl. So this HCl or the hydrochloric acid denatures the proteins. Okay, it denatures the proteins and activates pepsin. Now, one thing you should know is that pepsin is produced as pepsinogen. Why? Pepsin is an enzyme that breaks down um, proteins to polypeptides. So if it is produced, the stomach lining is made of protein. So if it is produced in its active form as pepsin, it might digest the walls of the stomach. So which means it has to be produced as pepsinogen. Now this pepsinogen is activated by this acid in the stomach called hydrochloric acid. But this acid also has another role. Which role is that? This HCl or hydrochloric acid maintains the pH pH of the stomach. The enzymes in the stomach act best in an acidic medium. So what provides that medium is what we have seen. So we know that in the mouth, the medium of its act on food is what we call alkaline. It is alkaline medium. Now, this pepsin breaks down proteins into smaller peptides and amino acids. You see, it breaks down into smaller peptides and amino acids. We are moving on very well. For now, we are going to talk on the stomach. So let me rush you through this stomach. What happens in the stomach? The gastric amylase is also released in the stomach, and this breaks down the carbohydrates. When you learn about digestion in the lower classes like senior 3 and maybe primary, you might not be able to see some of these things I am mentioning because these are detailed notes. I am giving you something that is latest. So we are going to see that gastric amylase is also produced in the gastric juice, and this one breaks down the carbohydrates. And another one is protein denaturation. We talked about hydrochloric acid, and we said this protein denaturation is done by the hydrochloric acid. It denatures the proteins and makes them more accessible to enzymes. It denatures them and makes them more accessible to enzymes. Another thing is protein digestion. There is protein digestion in the stomach. This is the third part, the third process in the stomach, protein digestion, and this is we said earlier on that proteins do a very big role here. So pepsin breaks down proteins into smaller particles, and those smaller particles are what we are calling peptides and amino acids. The last most interesting thing in the stomach. This process is called churning and mixing. This churning, as the food is in the stomach has its muscles. Now, the muscles contract and relax. As they contract and relax, they mix the stomach contents. And as they mix, they provide enough medium for this and enough time and chances for these enzymes to break down the food. Is it okay? So this process is what we call churning, and it is we say that the stomach muscles churn and makes the food gastric juice. That is why I was saying it mixes the stomach contents. So that is briefly what happens in the stomach. So the food begins going out a little by a little. We are going to talk about more of digestion in the next part, in the continuation. Thank you very much. You have been listening to Teacher Bernard, and I want to thank all these people I'm seeing here who are live, and may God bless you. Don't forget to share. You can share my videos, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you very much. I am so delighted to have learners who are learning with you.